ABC 10 News at 7 starts now.
For the third time just this month, a suspected human smuggling attempt in San Diego waters has failed, this time with deadly consequences. Good evening. I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. At least one person did die and 10 others were rescued from a boat that eventually capsized off of La Jolla shores this morning. In all, 15 people were taken into custody. We have team coverage on this story, beginning with our ABC 10 News anchor Lindsay Pena with the very latest on the investigation.
This happened very early this morning. The waters were still pretty dark out here, and from what we're told by lifeguards, very choppy. Unfortunately, one person lost their life. Border Patrol says it was just after 5 a.m. that they began tracking a small boat off the coast of Point Loma. At the time, conditions were rough.
We have 4 to 6 foot surf and some heavy currents.
As the boat made its way up the coast, people began bailing out. San Diego lifeguards were called in to help rescue some of the migrants who were dumped in the water near the Marine Street beach access.
8 people detained coming in on a Rescue 3 vessel.
The boat then managed to make it over to the children's pool area where more passengers jumped out. Lifeguards say it took nearly 30 minutes to get everyone out of the water, but unfortunately, one of those rescued died.
A lot of times these vessels are not seafaring vessels. They're grossly overladen. They're packed with gas cans. They're packed full of people with inadequate or lacking safety devices.
Border Patrol says there were 16 people total on board, but only 15 survived. There's no word yet on ages of those involved or what country they originally came from.
All of the individuals were determined to be unlawfully present inside the United States and were transported to a Border Patrol station for processing.
Lifeguards tell us from what they were able to see, only several of those people on board even had access to life jackets. We're reporting in La Jolla, Lindsay Pena, ABC 10 News.
Today's rescue is just the latest in a wave of cases along our coast. Our ABC 10 News anchor Derek Stahl is going in depth to show us what's behind the surge of crossings at sea.
The number of boat smuggling incidents is way up. Experts say we're on track for a record year, and there are several factors at play. A mix of desperation, pent-up demand, politics, and the pandemic. It's now happened at least 3 times this month.
We got these 2, they're just cold right now.
A smuggling attempt off the San Diego coastline that turned into a desperate rescue. On May 17th, 23 people had to be pulled from a boat off Point Loma that got stuck in the surf line. No one was hurt, but on May 2nd, another boat smashed into a reef off Point Loma and capsized, killing 3 and sending 24 to the hospital.
The maritime thing has surged. We will hit a record this year for maritime apprehensions, almost certainly.
Dr. Ev Mead is a professor at the University of San Diego. The Border Patrol San Diego sector says it's seen 172 smuggling attempts by boat this fiscal year, and it's made 1,063 apprehensions. Their record is just over 1,200 apprehensions. It was set last year.
We get over 1,200, we're like, wow, for the maritime border. Okay, but again, the land border, 178,000 in April. Okay, so it's much, much smaller phenomenon.
He says migrants typically cross by land because it's much cheaper, 3 times cheaper by one estimate. But he says migrants are increasingly desperate for several reasons.
Well, part of it is Tijuana. We've got, a lot of people waiting in Tijuana to come, and you have smugglers who are coming in and making them an offer.
There are thousands of people still camping out just south of the border who were excluded by President Donald Trump's Remain in Mexico policy. President Biden is beginning to unwind that policy, but experts say the situation on the ground hasn't changed much because he's kept another Trump-era law called Title 42. Title 42 is a regulation from the CDC that closes the border to non-essential travel to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. But immigrant rights advocate Pedro Rios says it does something else.
Title 42 gives Border Patrol the authority to expel people without having to undergo a due process that they normally would have.
He says the end result is that people who cross the border and try to claim asylum wind up back in Mexico. And he says the people who have waited in tent camps for years increasingly feel the asylum system is closed.
It becomes a very frustrating and agonizing time for them. And so consequently, that means that people are seeking other means to cross into the U.S. because of that desperation.
Experts say the other reason there's a spike in people trying to cross now has to do with the pandemic. And you can see that in the data, says Professor Mead.
Last year, it was mostly families and children. This year, we have some unaccompanied kids and a whole bunch of single adults. And they're coming to work. It's just that simple. And it's because the economies in their home country have been devastated by the pandemic. And we've recovered faster than they have.
U.S. restaurants and agriculture businesses have jobs they can't fill. Migrants feel they have no shot at asylum, so they try another route, increasingly the dangerous one by sea. Not only is the Coast Guard and the Border Patrol expecting a record number of maritime apprehensions, experts predict we could have a record number of migrant deaths. So far in 2021, at least 117 migrants have died while trying to cross the U.S.-Mexico border. Derek Stahl, ABC 10 News.
You can stay on top of this still developing story and all the breaking news with the ABC 10 News mobile app. It is free in the App Store and Google Play.
Efforts to reach those not yet vaccinated in the county are now headed door to door. ABC 10 News reporter Michael Chen reveals the campaign state officials believe will be key to getting as many people vaccinated as possible.
Over the past 3 weeks, canvassers from 2 local nonprofits, Alliance San Diego and Partnership for the Advancement of New Americans, have been going door to door in underserved communities in San Diego hard hit by COVID. Christopher Rice Wilson is Associate Director of Alliance San Diego.
We are confident that we will make a huge difference in the low vaccination rate amongst people of color.
The outreach begins with a knock at the door. The goal is to educate and help set up COVID vaccine appointments by overcoming barriers like technology, misinformation, and language.
When someone knocks on your door with information who looks like you, who talks the way you talk, who lives in the same neighborhood you live in, you're more likely to listen to them.
The canvassers hired as part of the statewide project Healthy Future California, which is partnering with UCLA. The state kicking in $20 million in hopes of reaching those not yet vaccinated. Rice Wilson says the peer-to-peer appeals are working. So far, the 2 groups have knocked on more than 6,000 doors in San Diego County, sometimes following up with phone calls.
The people we talk to who have not been vaccinated, we're seeing about a 65 to 75% success rate in making appointments for them.
That's translated into more than 500 vaccine appointments.
We want to make sure that these communities are a part of the solution and that they know they're part of the solution and that we can all play our role in keeping our community safe.
Rice Wilson says his team of 20 will continue to canvass 5 days a week until the end of June. Michael Chen, ABC 10 News.
Across the state, canvassers have knocked on more than 230,000 doors and made 13,000 vaccine appointments.
And more cruise ship workers are getting vaccinated against COVID-19. 179 crew members from Holland America's Noordam got their first shot today, thanks to a team from Sharp Healthcare. They'll come back to San Diego here in a few weeks to get their second dose. This is now the second day in a row that a vaccine team from Sharp Healthcare distributed shots to cruise workers. And here are the latest numbers. The county reported 145 new local cases of the virus today. County also says that 3 more people have died from the virus.
And nearly 3 weeks after a malware attack crippled its services, Scripps Health is confirming part of the system is back online. However, the hospital still won't say whether patient records were stolen. Despite the news, some patients say they were still unable to access the MyScripps patient portal system. Multiple sources inside Scripps Health have told ABC 10 News they now have access to read-only medical records dated before May 1st. A security expert says the hospital could be doing that to see if at some point any records were compromised.
That's what it sounds like to me, is that they have brought back some functionality in their electronic health record system, probably with a backup of records.
The hospital still hasn't said who may be responsible for the malware attack, whether records were compromised or if there is a ransom.
A sexually violent predator will not be placed at a home in the Mount Helix neighborhood. Today, a judge ruled that the home on Horizon Hills Drive would not be suitable for 78-year-old Douglas Badger. Instead, he tasked state hospital officials with finding Badger a new place to live. The ruling comes nearly 2 weeks after another local judge denied placement of a second sexually violent predator in that very same home. Neighbors spoke out against both placements, and tonight they said they will finally be able to rest easy.
You know, this was something that we thought about every single day. We had to protect our families, and we did it for our children and for our neighbors because we love them and we love living here.
County Supervisor Joel Anderson, whose district oversees that neighborhood, also called the ruling a win.